The Georgia Bulldogs closed out week one of their 2024 fall camp on Sunday. And speaking of Sunday's practice, I actually had an opportunity to attend that final practice of the week. So, what did I see? Who stood out? What were my biggest takeaways? Guys, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get after it.
We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? I'm Tyler, and this is the Glory UGA podcast brought to you by our great friends at MyBookie. And if you enjoy this brand of hardcore Georgia football talk designed for the most die-hard Georgia fans on planet Earth, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now for a lot more content like this. Like the videos, comment, all the above. That is greatly appreciated, guys. And most importantly, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to check out the Glory UGA podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast for a ton of coverage of course, Georgia football, but all Georgia sports all throughout the year. So check that out, guys. I think you will enjoy that. All right, we have a lot to talk about. As I said at the outset of the show, I did have an opportunity to attend Georgia's practice today, and I wanted to come on here and share with you guys what I saw. Now, before I do dive into what I saw, I want to make sure to put this disclaimer out there. If you've ever been to a Georgia practice under Kirby Smart, you know what I'm talking about. We had the open practices a couple years ago, so I know a lot of you probably made it out for that. So if you've ever taken a Georgia practice under Kirby Smart, you know that it really is impossible to take in everything because there's just so much going on, right? I mean, you can watch this for a minute and that for a minute, but trying to take in everything all at once, that is futile. It's impossible. It cannot happen. So I just say that to make sure everyone understands that, yes, while I did try to bounce around from position to position, from drill to drill as much as I could, you kind of have to prioritize. And there were certain players, certain positions going into today's practice that I had in my mind that I wanted to watch a little bit more closely. So again, I say all that just to say this is what I saw. It's my interpretation of what I saw out there. I was certainly not the only person out there, so someone else might have been at the same practice, but came away with totally different observations, different opinions, different takeaways, different interpretations. But again, you just can't watch everything. You can't watch every single rep of every single player. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. But saying that, I will stand by what I saw. What I saw is what we're going to go with here today on the show, and that comes along with the understanding that yeah, I saw what I saw, but I also didn't see every single rep of every player out there. So just want to put that disclaimer out there. But with that, let's dive into what I saw out there, guys. And there's a million places we could start. I think the most reasonable place to start would be who I saw lining up with the number one offense, number one defense, number two offense, number two defense. What did the depth chart look like? Okay, so let's start on the offensive side of the ball. At quarterback, it's obvious, right? Carson Beck is QB1. As I expected, right now, Gunnar Stockton is QB2, with Jaden Rashada and Ryan Puglisi kind of splitting reps with the threes. They certainly did not get as many reps as the first two guys. Carson Beck getting more reps than anybody, and Stockton was a close second there. At running back, interesting here, right? So Kirby told us, he announced on Thursday in his opening press conference of fall camp that Branson Robinson was practicing full go without limitations, which was music to my ears. But hearing it and seeing it are two different things. So I was very eager to get out there and actually lay eyes on Branson Robinson. Because, also being cleared, being able to practice without limitation doesn't mean that you are 100% and you're the same guy that you were pre-injury. So I was very eager to lay my eyes on Branson Robinson and see, okay, he's cleared, full go, no limitations, but what version of Branson Robinson are we working with right now? Is this a guy that we can expect to help us as early as week one against Clemson, or is it going to be more of a slower buildup to where we won't really see him make much of an impact until maybe mid-season, maybe October, maybe by the Alabama game in late September? I wanted to see that. And I'll tell you guys, what I saw from Branson Robinson, I wouldn't have known he was hurt. If I did not know that he missed all of last year, let's say I just moved over here from China and I went to this Georgia practice, I wouldn't know that he looked any different than any other running back. I would never have guessed that he'd ever been hurt. He looked that good. He looked explosive. He looked powerful. He didn't look hesitant at all. It didn't look like he didn't have confidence in the knee. This guy looked like Branson Robinson pre-injury. Now, that's just one practice, right? This also bears mentioning, this was not a fully padded practice. They were in shells, so helmets and shoulder pads, but shorts, okay? So it wasn't a fully padded practice. So that's the next hurdle he's got to cross and overcome. But in that setting, shoulder pads, helmet, shorts, he looked good, man. He looked about as good as I could have expected him to look, and that is amazing. So yeah, it's, again, great to hear Kirby say it on one end. Hey, yeah, he's full go, but now that I saw with my own two eyes, I'm a believer, man. I think Branson Robinson's going to help us week 1. I think he's going to play a lot week 1, if I had to guess right now, based off what I saw. No, I know it's one practice. We don't want to overreact to one practice. That wasn't even a fully padded practice, but he looked the part, and he was getting opportunities with the number 1 offense. So it was Trevor Etienne, who was the top back with the number 1 offense, but Branson Robinson and Roger Robinson, they were both kind of splitting reps there as the number 2 back with that number 1 offense, working in and out there. Then behind them, you had Nate Frazier, the true freshman from California, number 2 running back in the country. Chauncey Bowens, who was here in the spring for spring practice. Frazier was not. He was a summer enrollee. So this is like his 4th practice as a Georgia Bulldog, and you could tell he was still trying to figure out the pace of practice and what to do from drill to drill. Kirby had got onto him a time or two on the microphone, and if you're not familiar with how Kirby does it, he's on the mic the entire time, just screaming at guys all over the place. It's actually pretty hilarious. So you had Frazier, you had Bowens, and also Cash Jones was getting some looks with the 2nd and 3rd team as well. Wide receiver, certainly a position I was watching close since I want to see what the depth chart looked like. What did the first unit look like? Now with Ra Thomas dismissed from the team, as we found out last week. We talked about that here on the show. Make sure to check that episode out if you missed that. But he's gone. So is it Colby Young going to just slide in right there at the X? Like, what was that going to look like? Actually, no, it was not Colby Young. It was Dylan Bell, who's a guy that I thought will get some looks there. He's got the body. He's got the physicality to be able to get off press coverage at the line, playing that X spot, played some as a true freshman when A.D. Mitchell went down in week 2 in 2022. But Dylan Bell opened as a starter at X. Arian Smith was a starter at Z with Dominic Lovett in the slot. No surprise with Dom Lovett. We knew that. And I figured if Colby Young was not the starting X out there, it would be Bell. And then if Bell was over there, Arian Smith would be the starter at Z. So that didn't surprise me. That's kind of what I expected. And this really didn't surprise me either, but it was awesome to see because I'm just sky high on this guy. Anthony Evans, rising sophomore, who kind of came on late in the season, had that big punt return against Alabama in the SEC championship game, kind of snuck him on the field there, had that touchdown the slot fade against Florida State. This guy has the goods, man. Physically, he's electric. But I was curious, okay, with Dominic Lovett out there in the slot, which is where Anthony Evans really plays, that's where he fits, how much can Anthony Evans play for us? How much will he factor into our plans this year on offense when you've got a veteran, a leader like Dominic Lovett there playing virtually the same position? I was curious. Well, I mean, guys, Anthony Evans, if I had to say who's wide receiver 4 right now based off what I saw at that one practice, it's clearly Anthony Evans. He got a lot of work with the number 1 offense. And look, maybe that's because we know what we have in Lovett, and we're trying to get Anthony Evans up to speed because we think he can help us. You want to get him more reps, and Dom Lovett's been around for a while. I mean, he's only a second year at Georgia, but he's played college football for a while, and he's a very talented guy that we're confident he knows what to do. So maybe that was part of it, but Anthony Evans played a lot today with the number 1 offense, and he made plays, man. He looked really, really good out there. Then behind those guys, you did have Colby Young, the transfer from Miami, at the X receiver position with the 2nd unit. You had London Humphreys, a transfer from Vanderbilt, at Z with the 2nd unit, and then Michael Jackson, the 3rd, was getting most of the reps in the slot in the 2nd unit. So Kofi White was also working in the slot there with who's a true freshman with the number 2 offense as well. So that's basically the depth chart there at wide receiver based off what I saw. But again, Anthony Evans getting a lot of work. And I would not read too much right now into Colby Young not being the number 1 X receiver. We have to remember, guys, he is new to this program. This is only the 4th practice, I think, of fall camp. I think we practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week because it was a shorter week, and we'll spread out a little bit more in the coming weeks. But he's even though he was here for the spring, he's still learning what to do in our system. He's still getting up to speed just in how we practice, all those things. But the skill set is there, guys. Physically, the skill set is there. I mean, you just have a guy in Dylan Bell who's been around for 2 extra years ahead of Colby Young. certainly knows the system a lot better than Colby Young, has played more in this Georgia system than Colby Young has. So I think early in fall camp, you defer to those guys, and then you see how things progress as fall camp goes on. Because look, Dylan Bell doesn't start at X, he's starting at Z. He's starting at one of those spots. So it's not like if you think Colby Young is stepping up to play that X spot, well, now Dylan Bell's got to be on the bench. No, Dylan Bell just slide over to Z, and it'd be Arian Smith who's coming off the bench in that regard. But however it turns out in terms of who's starting, all these guys are going to play. Bell's going to play. Arian Smith's going to play. Dom Lovett's going to play. Anthony Evans is going to play. Colby Young is going to play. I think that London Humphreys is going to play. Based off what I saw today, I think that guy can make plays for us. So Michael Jackson III, I thought looked good at times today too. I wasn't watching him as closely as maybe some of the other guys, but when I saw Michael Jackson out there, I mean, this guy showed that he has the ability to make plays for this Georgia offense. So that's the wide receiver spot. At tight end, you guys know, if you've been listening to this podcast at all over the course of really like the last 6 months or so since we landed this guy from Stanford, you know how high I am on Benjamin Urosic. I'm sky high on this guy. I don't know if I could possibly be more high on him. However, saying that, he was not working with the number one offense today. Again, a lot like Colby Young, I'm not going to read too much into that. Maybe it'll be, I mean, we know that Oscar Delp has got a starting spot. He's going to be the inline tight end in the Georgia offense. He's going to be the number one guy there. That's case closed. No questions there. But then it comes down to Lawson Lucky as a rising sophomore in this Georgia offense, or Benjamin Urosic to be that starter at that mover tight end role that Brock Bowers has played so effectively for us for the last 3 years. Right now, it's Lawson Lucky, with Urosic working primarily with the number two offense. Got a few reps of the ones, but primarily with the two. It's almost exclusively. I think I saw him sinking like a rep or two, maybe the ones, but he was basically with the two offense the entire day. But again, I don't read too much into that because this guy was, unlike Colby Young, he wasn't even a spring guy. He stayed at Stanford through May to earn his degree. He came here in the summer. So we're talking about the first week of this guy practicing at Georgia. I have no expectation of him just sliding in right away as the starter. He's going to have to earn that. That's how Kirby operates, guys. That's his MO. If you're a freshman, if you're a transfer, we don't just automatically plug you in. You've got to go out there and earn it in practice. And if you do, then you have that spot. Because think about it, guys. If you let Urosic, as talented as this guy is, as productive as he's been at the Power 4 level, once upon a time Power 5 level, now Power 4 level, as productive as he has been, if you bring him in and just throw him into the starters right away, what does that do to your team chemistry, right? You can't do that. You have to make him earn it so the players on the team can see it for themselves. Like, oh yeah, like this guy's earned that. He's earned that playing time. He's earned that spot. So look, he might not earn that starting spot. Maybe not. I still project him to be that guy pretty early this season. But Lawson Lucky's a really talented guy too, man. And look, I just want the best man to win. Like, this is not me like saying I have to be right. I think Urosic is awesome, and I believe he can be that guy for us. But if Lawson Lucky proves that he's better than Urosic, that's incredible, because Urosic has been the fourth most productive tight end in college football over the last 3 seasons, behind Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, and Dalton Kincaid. All right, so if Lawson Lucky shows he's better than that guy, I'm okay with that. I just want Georgia to win, right? So that's kind of what it's looking like there. And then behind Urosic, you had Jaden Riddell, Colton Heinrich, the 2 true freshmen. So that's your tight end spot. Offensive line, a little interesting here. Now, the interior had to move around a little bit because Jared Wilson, the projected starter at center, was out there. He was with the team doing some cycling on the side, but he wasn't getting any reps, like actual live reps out there. So I don't know what the issue is. I'm sure that Kirby will ask about that at his next press conference next week. But it looked to be a minor thing. It didn't look to be like, he wasn't out there in street clothes. Like, he was out there fully dressed out. He was going through some of the drills, just wasn't going through like live reps. We were doing the team stuff, the team run stuff, the 909 stuff that we did. Yes, we did 909, not so much the 707 stuff. So he wasn't out there. So we had to mix and match a little bit on the interior. The tackles were what I expected. At left tackle, you had Ernest Green. At right tackle, you had Xavier Truss as your starting 2. And then Moreau Freeling was working in very liberally with both of those guys, at right tackle and left tackle, with the number 1 offense. Got some reps with the 2s as well, but he was working with the number 1s quite a bit. And then you had Dylan Fairchild at left guard. Not a surprise. He started 10 games there for us last year. And then we're ready to mix things up. Okay, well, if Jared Wilson is not in, who's going to be our center? Now, my projection, I think last week when I did our depth chart projection, was Drew Bobo would be the number 2 guy. And he kind of is-ish. But what we actually did is, we cross-train guys, right? Like, we want to get our best 5 linemen out there. And right now, we don't think that Drew Bobo is one of our best 5 linemen. What we did is we actually moved Tate Ratledge from right guard to center. he was the one that got the lion's share of reps at center with the number one offense. Drew Bobo got some, absolutely, but Ratledge got a lot, and then we had Micah Morris, who was really he's our number 3 guard, and so we moved Ratledge to center, Morris to right guard, and that was the starting unit for most of the day. With, again, you saw from time to time, you see Drew Bobo working at center and Ratledge move over to right guard, just again cross-training and that kind of thing. Now behind them, it was kind of mix and match. So again, Drew Bobo works a little bit with the ones, works a lot more with the twos. We saw Jamal Merriweather played left tackle, a little bit of right tackle as well. Monroe Freeling played with the twos some as well. Daniel Calhoun got some reps at right guard with, actually got most of his reps at right guard with the number 2 offensive line. One guy I do want to throw out there, because I did an entire video on him about 3 weeks ago when he committed. Jazar Jackson, the former semi-pro basketball player playing with the Overtime Elite, the 6'10", like 360-pound massive dude. He's a guy that I called I think I called him a generational athlete. I couldn't say generational player because he hadn't played football since like 9th grade. So you got to see what he can do out there. But in terms of athleticism at that size, those guys don't exist. Those are aliens. And when he was out there, he was working with the number 3 offensive line at left tackle. He's still very much learning what to do, man. Like there's one snap in particular where he like the entire offensive line's down, like they're in their stances. He's straight up, turning around, like has no clue what's happening, and then they snap the ball. I mean, obviously that would have been a false start and wouldn't have been allowed to be an actual play, but they just went with it. He had no idea what's going on, but the tools are there, man. Like the athleticism off the charts. There was one play, he pancaked a dude. I can't remember exactly who it was he pancaked, but drove somebody straight into the ground and buried him. That was my question about Jazar Jackson. I was like, okay, I know you got the athleticism. I know you got the footwork. I know you got the size, but do you have like the nastiness? Do you have the physicality to you to play the offensive line in the SEC and really ultimately reach the insane potential that you have? And look, one practice. But in that one practice, the answer was an affirmative for me. Yes, he does. And it'll take some time. He's still very much trying to figure out what to do. He just got on campus like 3 weeks ago, guys. So this is the first time he's been practicing football at all in like 4 or 5 years. So it will take some time, but it's going to happen. That guy is going to be a big-time player for us. So just be patient with him. Give him a year or 2. But he looked really good out there. So yeah, that's the offense. Now things over to the defensive side of the ball. Defense is tougher, guys, trying to pinpoint what the depth chart looks like on defense, because you know how we do. We throw a lot of different packages out there. We don't really run our base 3-4 much anymore. We did quite a bit today, especially anytime that we were in 12 personnel on offense, we were in base personnel with our defense, okay? But of course, you have your dime package out there at times. You have your nickel package out there. So we're throwing, and even in your dime package, we have multiple variations of our dime package. So it's just really tough to pinpoint, okay, like this is Georgia's depth chart on defense. So you're moving guys in and out. You're moving guys from this position to that position based on the package, based on down and distance situations, all of that kind of stuff. So just want to put that out there. But here's my best attempt at a depth chart for the defense today. All right, on defensive line, we're going to go when we're in our base 3-4, right? Let's go base 3-4. Because we were in that more than we really ever are during the actual season. But base 3-4, you had Nazir Stackhouse at the zero tech nose guard, Christian Miller, who was working a lot at a 3-tech defensive tackle because, Jordan Hall's out right now, Warren Brinson's out. They were both there, but they weren't going through live reps out there. So Christian Miller got a lot of work. Then Tyrion Ingram Dawkins was working with the 5. Now, there was a lot of guys working at 5-tech. Michael worked at 5-tech plenty today. Just depending on the situation, and the guys were moving in and out. But TID, when we went to like full team stuff late in practice, he was the guy that opened at the 5-tech spot in our base 3-4. Xavier McLeod, the transfer from South Carolina with some of the injuries, was moving up the depth chart. It was him, not Jamal Jarrett, who was working in there. Now, Jamal Jarrett's really a zero tech guy. And McLeod can play zero tech, but he's also athletic enough to play the 3. So he was working in there with Christian Miller playing some 3. And then behind those guys, Jamal Jarrett playing that zero tech. Nnamdi Agboko is getting some reps in there. Jordan Thomas. So 2 freshmen. Agboko and Jordan Thomas both look good at times. Kirby has some complimentary things to say about Jordan Thomas a couple of different times. So those guys got some looks there. So we were kind of thin on the defensive line without having guys like Warren Brinson and Jordan Hall. But I thought the guys that were out there played well. We'll get that in a little bit here. At Jack, now this is where it's all depends on the situation, man. So when we were in our base 3-4, when we went to like the full team stuff, it was Michael Williams in Chaz Chambliss. Okay? Now, prior to that, Chaz wasn't playing a ton. I mean, that might be one of those situations like with Dominic Lovett on the offensive side of the ball. Like Chaz has played a lot of football for us. We know what Chaz can do. We trust that Chaz knows what to do, and he doesn't need as many reps as a guy like maybe Jaylen Walker, as a guy like maybe Mykel Williams moving over to that jack linebacker position. Now, when we were not in our base 3-4, when we were in our nickel package, most of the time in that situation, it was Mykel Williams at the 5. TID would come in and rotate in at times. And here's what I did not expect. Maybe I should have expected it. Jaylen Walker. Jaylen Walker, when we were in our nickel package, most of the day, he was with the number 1 defense playing jack linebacker. That shouldn't completely surprise us because that's where he spent most of his time his first 2 years. He's actually played almost exclusively in our third down package where he's a kind of a designated pass rusher, and he played that extremely well. He was our most disruptive player last year. I don't think it's really close, to be honest with you. And that's what got him on the field. But we were so stacked inside linebacker that he wasn't playing a ton of inside linebacker. And of course, we made a lot during the spring. Okay, yeah, we're moving Jaylen Walker to inside linebacker. We talked about it a lot here on this very podcast. And Jaylen Walker did play a lot of inside linebacker today. We'll get to that next. But when we were in that nickel package, so we take one of our Sam linebacker off the field, and you bring in Janelle Aguero as your nickelback, your star defender, it was Jaylen Walker, especially early on, at that jack linebacker position with Mykel playing the 5, TID rotating in some there as well at the 5. So I thought we were just moving Jaylen Walker to inside linebacker full time, and then we're still going to use him on third downs as that designated pass rusher, maybe play him off the edge a little bit there. Not necessarily the case. This guy is still going to be apparently playing a lot of jack for us. And look, he is, in terms of our inside linebackers, he's bigger than the other guys. I mean, he's like 245 pounds, man. Like, he's a big dude. He's gotten bigger and stronger, so I think he's a guy that can play some there. I thought it would be more of a guy like Damon Wilson Jr. And to be honest with you guys, again, I didn't see everyone out there. It's hard to watch everything at all times. It's actually impossible. I didn't see much of Damon Wilson Jr. out there. I didn't see him take a lot of reps. He was out there from time to time. I didn't see much. I saw Jaylen Walker get a lot more reps there than Damon Wilson Jr. did. Now, inside linebacker, CJ Allen was the stalwart. Like, he was the one who was there with the number 1 defense the entire time. Rarely came out with the number 1 defense. Then you had Jaylen Walker and Raylan Wilson kind of trading in and out, rotating in and out there next to CJ Allen. Now, Smile Munden is a guy who's still working back from injury. He's not full go right now. He was out there doing some things, some drills, wasn't like the live team stuff, wasn't the 9-on-9 stuff. So you saw Raylan Wilson and Jaylen Walker kind of splitting those reps next to CJ Allen. But both those guys looked really, really good. And then you got Troy Bowles, who got a few reps with the number 1 defense, was primarily working with the number 2s. And I think Troy Bowles looks really good, man. I mean, he's a really good athlete. It's going to be tough to keep this guy off the field at times, too. I mean, is he a guy that could find a role on third downs, maybe situationally? Possibly. I mean, he's a really good football player, so we'll see where he slots in. And then working primarily with the number 3 defense, you had the 2 true freshmen, 2 highly talented true freshmen, and Chris Cole from Virginia and Justin Williams from Texas. Those guys looked great on the hoof, man. Like, running out there, freak athletes, still figuring out what to do. Look, I know Justin Williams was that higher rated guy. He was the number 1 linebacker in the country coming out of high school in this 2024 class. And look, he's awesome. I'm not saying Justin Williams isn't good, but Chris Cole right now, I mean, if one of those guys had to be forced into duty, which is not going to be forced into because we're so stacked at that position, I would say Chris Cole is the guy right now. He's thicker right now. He's bigger. They're very similar in their athleticism and their speed out there. I think Cole might be a little bit longer. So I'm high on both those guys. Right now, Chris Cole looked the part. Man, I think that guy's going to be a really good football player. They'll both be really good football players for us. I do want to go back to the defensive line here real quick. One guy I had in my notes that I just kind of glossed over here. Joseph Jonah-Janye, the true freshman from Texas, actually same high school as Justin Williams. He was working a lot at the 5 tech as well. Was working with the number 2 defense quite a bit. Worked with number 1s at times when we got to the team stuff late, but it was primarily Mykel and TID there. Gabe Harris is a guy that's moved over to that 5 tech defensive end spot. Was there at practice. Another guy that was kind of off the side, going through some cycling stuff, doing some drills on the side, but wasn't going full go with the live reps. So he'll probably factor in there. And without him there, Joseph Jonah-Janye was able to get more reps, which, hey, and this is a guy that's extremely talented, and that getting all those reps like that is just going to further accelerate his development. All right, star, let's get the secondary. Jaylen Walker, he was unquestionably the guy. I mean, he got, I don't know if I ever saw anybody else go in at star with the number one defense besides Jaylen Walker. Kyron Jones was working with the number 2 defense at star. He looked good too. Made a couple plays on balls and broke up some passes. But Jaylen Walker, he's the real deal, man. We'll get to him a little bit later. At cornerback, somewhat surprising here. Daylen Everette, not surprising. He was a starter last year. Daylen Everette, I wouldn't say that he has like a stranglehold in the job. At least I didn't think that coming into fall camp. I thought maybe it was more of a tenuous hold. I might be adjusting that opinion. We'll get to that a little bit later on. He looked really, really good out there today. So he's got one spot. And it was actually Daniel Harris, the rising sophomore who got some play late in the year against Florida State, looked really good in that game, was flirting with entering the transfer portal along with our man Julian Humphrey. Those guys are both flirting. We got both those guys back because we know they're both talented guys. When you have an open spot, you want that competition to be strong, right? Well, today, I can't tell you what happened on Saturday, on Friday, on Thursday. I can tell you what happened on Sunday. It was Daniel Harris working almost exclusively with the number 1 defense along with Daylen Everette. All right, now I have heard from someone that said that earlier in the week, I think maybe it was a Friday or Saturday, that it was Julian Humphrey who was working with the number 1 defense. So it very feasibly could be a situation where it's so close between those two, Daniel Harris and Julian Humphrey, that it's just a day-by-day thing. Like this day you go with the ones, that day you go with the ones until we kind of find some separation between the two. Maybe that's the case. All I can tell you is what I saw today. And what I saw today is Daniel Harris working almost exclusively with the number 1 defense with Daylen Everette and Julian Humphrey. And then Ellis Robinson the 4th, the highly touted, extremely gifted true freshman, working with the number 2 defense at cornerback. And he looked good, man. Like he actually, I would say that Ellis Robinson had maybe the play of the day on he was a falling backwards, diving interception on the ball. I mean, just a freakishly athletic play. Like, he looked the part out there. I mean, when you watched him play, I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy, yeah, I see why you're the number 2 player in the country overall last year, the number 1 cornerback in the class. I mean, that guy is the real deal, and it could very well be a situation. We have 4 guys at cornerback with him, Humphrey, Everette, and Harris. 4 guys I feel really good about. I think they can all play. And in this day and age of the transfer portal, I mean, if they don't play, they're leaving. We already saw that with Daniel Harris and Julian Humphrey flirting with the portal after last year. So I know it's not something that we typically do at cornerback, but it's a new age, man. So do we see more of a rotation at cornerback? We in the past, we historically don't really rotate much at corner, if at all, under Kirby Smart. A little bit last year with Julian Humphrey, but it might be a more regular rotation because all those guys can play, and they probably deserve to play. And Ellis Robinson, my one concern about Ellis Robinson coming into the season is size and physicality. I mean, he's been on the record saying that at IMG, which I thought he was joking at first, but apparently at IMG, their coaches don't have their DBs lift weights. I think that's what he said. That seems almost impossible to believe. Like, that seems almost unreal. But if that's the case, I mean, you look at the guy, you can say, yeah, actually, that kind of checks out just by looking at him. So I was concerned about the size and physicality because you know what Kirby Smart demands of his cornerbacks. You got to be able to cover people, but you've got to be able to play with physicality and tackle people, whether it's the perimeter run game, whether it's the perimeter screen game. You've got to be able to handle your business, defeat blocks out there. I think that's a big part of why Daylen Everette played over Julian Humphrey last year, because he's just bigger, stronger, more physical than Humphrey was. I think that's really what allowed him to stay on the field as our starter really throughout last year, even though Humphrey was kind of making a push as the season progressed before he suffered that, I think it was a collarbone injury actually. They never officially announced what it was. I think it was a clavicle thing. So that was my concern with Ellis Robinson IV. I don't know if that's a concern anymore. Now, it's not the biggest guy, but I was stunned to see how physical that guy was playing. He was trying to lay people out. I mean, there was one play. So Nitro Tuggle, I believe. Yeah, I know it was Nitro Tuggle because Kirby called him out in front of the entire team, in front of the entire stadium out there. Ellis Robinson, so we were doing a drill. It was like a perimeter screen drill. And so the cornerback had to defeat the block of a receiver. And Ellis Robinson straight up assaulted Nitro Tuggle. I mean, he took the fight to him and put him on his back in the dirt, man. He buried that man. And Kirby Smart was like, I forget exactly what he said. He was like, Nitro Tuggle, you just got killed out there. And yeah, he did. So I saw that play. There's another play on a perimeter run play. We were doing just team run stuff. And he came up in run support, and I think it was ETN. Like I don't say he laid him out because we weren't tackling guys to the ground because we weren't in full pads, but he struck him, man. So the physicality was something I was surprised by, but really encouraged by with Ellis Robinson in the fourth, because that was my one question really when it came to him. Then at safety, I know we're all really high on KJ Bolden. I certainly include myself in that, but predictably, he was not out there with the number one defense the first week of fall camp. It was Malachi Starks, obviously, and then Dan Jackson. Makes sense. I mean, we've seen this story before, man. Like, we've seen this, right? Dan Jackson started week 1 against Oregon in 2022, and then you see Malachi Starks, who's now starting for us. He comes in, plays a lot because he's too good to not play, and he just makes these wow plays against Oregon. He starts week 2, and he's started every game since then. The rest is history. I could very well see a similar scenario because when KJ Bolden's out there, he just looks different, man. He just looks different. There's just no doubt about it. But Dan's out there right now. Look, Dan is a 6th-year guy. He's played a lot of football for us. So right now, I would expect Dan to go into week 1 as a starter, but I don't expect him to be the exclusive starter back there. Malachi will play just about every snap. But Dan, there might be some sort of rotation there, so that remains to be seen. But those guys are working there. And then KJ Bolden and Jake Pope, the transfer from Alabama, his former teammate at Buford High School, by the way, they were working primarily with the number 2 defense, and Ja'Cory Thomas was getting some reps out there as well. Had a bust or 2 out there. Kirby called him out for it, but he's still a solid player there. So that's your defense. Again, like, that's tougher to do because there's so many packages and moving parts out there. And then kick return and punt return. We'll do this real quick. I'm not going to go through every position on kick and punt return, but who are the actual returners? Well, still up in the air, but I can tell you who was repping as the return man. So kick return, Anthony Evans, which I think is obvious. KJ Bolden repping as a kick returner. Sokovi White, true freshman. And Dylan Bell repping as the kick returners. Those are the 4 that I saw out there. I don't think I missed anybody, but those are definitely the 4 I saw. Punt return, Anthony Evans. He was the only one. I think him and Sokovi White were the only 2 that worked in both kick return and punt return. Dominic Lovett was working in punt return. He was a dynamic punt returner from Missouri a couple years back. Trevor Etienne did some return stuff for Florida, was working with the punt return team. And so was Malachi Starks, probably the biggest surprise out there. I did not expect to see Malachi Starks, but if you ever watch Malachi Starks play high school football at Jefferson High School, the dude is dynamic on offense, the ball in his hands, return game. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. The guy's an insane athlete. I wouldn't expect him to be the top punt return option, but he was out there returning punts from the other guys as well. So there you go, guys. That is the depth chart, what I saw out there today. Not saying I'm 100% right, but and look, we weren't allowed to have phones out there, so taking notes was harder. So I had to come home. As soon as I came home, I just typed out everything I saw, like from my memory, and try to get all out so I didn't forget anything. So that's what I saw. Could have missed something, but those are my takeaways from the starting unit, and also I guess the 2 deep there with offense and defense. All right, now let's move into my biggest takeaways. I kind of alluded to some of them there going through the depth chart, but let's get a little bit more specific with my biggest takeaways. Now, a lot of you had an issue with an episode that I produced a couple weeks ago, all right? And look, I had previously, about a month or so ago, I did an episode on the audio side of things on the podcast where I ranked Georgia's position units. And I went into it with an open mind. I did not go into that ranking expecting to have Georgia's running backs dead last. But when I laid everything out, with the uncertainty, largely because of the uncertainty around Branson Robinson's health, I had them at the last spot. I had them in last place. And also, we have a really talented true freshman class, but I haven't seen those guys at the college level yet. So I just didn't I didn't want to have them last. I think it's a talented group, but I just what other position do I put them ahead of right now with the uncertainty there at that position? And so when I was doing my position unit previews, the videos I put out there, and you guys can go check those out, they're still up there. I did one of the running backs, and big question I asked is is this the weakest position on the team? And I said at the time, with all the questions I still have, without seeing what it looks like out there, right now I have to say yes. However, I'm a man of integrity. And I'm not a guy who can sit here and just take that initial opinion and say, I'm going to defend this come hell or high water. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You got to adjust your opinion. And guys, I was wrong. All right. I honestly don't know still who I would put behind the running back unit, but to call the running back room the weakest position on the team, that's not fair, man, because this room is loaded with talented players. I'm talking big time dudes. And again, the reason I had them dead last was primarily because of the uncertainty, largely with Branson Robinson, also these freshmen. I think the freshmen are really talented, like Nate Frazier, but I need to see it first, right? Some of these other positions, I have known commodities, not as much at the running back spot. I don't have those concerns anymore, all right? So all of you are saying like, dude, you're crazy. Yeah, I think you're right, all right? I was crazy. Because Branson Robinson, man. I said at the beginning of the show, he looked like Branson Robinson pre-injury. I mean, going 100 miles an hour out there. He's a little bowling ball, running through people, looked explosive, wasn't favoring the leg. He exceeded my expectations. Like, I expected him to look solid out there. I mean, he's a full year removed from the injury. It's an injury that usually takes about 9-ish months, so he should have been fine, but you never know. And he looked fantastic, man. So I am like, at the point now, I was like, okay, is Branson our best running back? I think that's the question we have to ask now. If he continues to progress, we'll see what happens when he puts full pads on. But there is a world where Branson Robinson is 100% our best running back. I mean, he was going to be that guy for us coming into last year if it was not for the injury. Let's not forget how highly recruited this guy was coming out of high school. Let's not forget what he did when he got opportunities as a true freshman. He ran for almost 100 yards against Auburn, was running through people, running for touchdowns. I know like, it was late in the game or whatever, but ran for 2 touchdowns in the national championship game against TCU. This guy is legit. I just didn't know what to expect. That's why I called him in one of my videos early in the summer about X Factors, which you can check that one out. I called him the #1 X Factor because I didn't know what to expect. But if Branson was healthy and was Branson Robinson, then all bets are off, man. Like, that could be a game changer for us. And right now, based off what I saw, I know it's one practice, but what I saw, I think he's ready to be that guy. And that is a game-changing development for Georgia. So that was huge. And also, Nate Frazier, man. Oh, my God. Like, I loved this guy coming out of high school. In fact, I did a video. One of the videos I did early in this, doing my top 5 series was top 5 impact freshmen. And I think he came in at #2 on my list, 2 or 3, actually maybe 3. I think it was Ellis Robinson and KJ Bolden who were 1 and 2. But Frazier was high on that list because I thought the opportunity would be there with the uncertainty around Branson Robinson. And I was just over the moon excited about what this guy could do coming to high school. I mean, this guy was just ridiculous at Mater Dei out in California. He was a top 50 player overall, #2 running back in the country, but he wasn't here for the spring, which is like, okay, now you got to get to speed, you got to learn how to do the pass pro stuff, figure out how we practice, all those kind of things. And you could tell that he was still figuring that out, but when the ball was in this guy's hands, I mean, he can do things that no other back on the team can do. And I include Trevor Etienne and Branson Robinson in that. He has an extra gear that the other guys just don't have. He's probably more similar to Trevor Etienne than the other guys, but I don't know. He's kind of a total package. He is lightning quick. He, in a short area, I mean, he'll make you miss. I mean, he made a couple guys miss. And he's got this insane extra gears acceleration, and he will also put his shoulder down and run through you. He runs hard, man. He runs angry out there. It's not full pads. Who cares? He's going to run through people and over people. That guy is going to play for us this year. How much? I don't know, because Branson Robinson looks really, really good. We know Trevor Etienne is awesome, and Roger Robinson looks really good as well. So I don't. He's not going to be our top back or our second back. I'm probably not going to be our third back to open the season. But I do think he will get carries. I think we will find packages and ways to get him on the field because the dude is just too dynamic to not give him a chance to play for you this year. He's that good, man. He really, really is. And I think the more the season progresses, because remember, he wasn't here for the spring, the more the season progresses, the more comfortable he gets at this level, I think this guy's going to get more and more carries as the season goes on. He's electric, man. He is electric. That's a future #1 running back, a future feature back for Georgia. You can bank on that. All right, I mentioned Jaylen Walker earlier. Jaylen Walker's about to explode, man. Jaylen Walker is going to take the SEC by storm this year. I fully believe that. You guys that have been with me for a while, you know how highly I think of Jaylen Walker. You know how much I was screaming after the Alabama game, and really since the Alabama game, how unforgivable it was that dude only played 12 snaps, 12 freaking snaps in the SEC championship game, the most important game of the year. Our most disruptive player on defense, bar none, played 12 snaps. And he was impactful pretty much every single snap he was out there. That's just unforgivable for me. But part of it was, okay, well, where do we play him? He's not really ready to play inside linebacker right now. Is he fit as a jack? You don't know. So he's kind of just relegated to that third down role, right? So third downs, we roll him out there in third and long and have him rush a passer. But that was about it. I have said all offseason that one of the priorities for this team had to be finding ways to get Jaylen Walker on the field, whether that's inside linebacker, whether it's Jack, beefing him up to play Jack, whatever. The dude's got to be on the field more consistently because he is a disruptor. He is a game wrecker when the man is on the field. He is explosive. He is powerful. He is dynamic. He is athletic. He can bend like crazy off the edge. He can beat you with speed rush. The dude is the real deal. So I felt we had to find ways to get him more on the field more consistently. And you know what? I don't get it all. I don't always get it right, but I think this is one I got right because clearly the coaches realize we've got to find ways to get this man on the field. I mean, look, if I can see it, little old me, the coaches see it. Right? They got to find ways to get him on the field. And he did do a variety of things for us, just playing some jack linebacker, third downs. He was doing the same thing he was doing last year. And he was also playing a lot of inside linebacker for us too. So clearly, we're trying to find ways to get this guy on the field in different situations, different packages to maximize what he can bring to the table. This guy is a difference maker. He cannot play. There's no scenario this season where he only plays 12 snaps a game. If that happens, I will spontaneously combust. That's what will happen. This show will be over because I will no longer be of this earth. So he is electric. He is dynamic. And our coaches, I think, finally realized this and are finding ways to get this guy on the field. He, at the very least, is going to be in our top 4 inside linebacker. Based off what I saw today, our top 4 inside linebacker is pretty clear right now. C.J. Allen, I think Smile Munden when he's healthy. And then you've got Raylan Wilson and Jaylen Walker behind them. And I would say Troy Bowles probably 5th behind those guys. But I think that's your pretty clear top 4 right now. Jaylen Walker, you can move him around, do some different things. So I think he's going to be a game changer for us this year. I think the entire SEC, the entire college football world is going to know that guy by the end of the year. I think he's going to be a household name. All right, next up, I mentioned Anthony Evans a little bit earlier. I was already coming into today sky high on Anthony Evans' ability in this offense, with this team in general, whether it's return game, whether it's playing offense. And we didn't see a lot of them last year, but I love this guy coming out of high school. He's a 10-2-7, 100-meter guy coming out of high school, which is not Arian Evans or Arian Smith level fast, but not that far off. Arians was a 100-meter guy as a freshman at Georgia. But this guy can fly. He's dynamic. He's electric. Give him in space. He can make people miss. He's elusive, all of those things. And I was curious today, coming into where's this guy fit in? How much is he going to play? Especially with Dominic Lovett playing that slot. So I was already high on him, but after today, it's very clear he is a big part of our plans for this Georgia offense in 2024. He might not start. Actually, probably won't start. Almost certainly will not start because you got Dominic Lovett there. But Anthony Evans is going to play. He's going to play a lot for Georgia, and he is going to make a lot of plays for Georgia. Anthony Evans will help us win football games this year 100%. This guy is going to make explosive plays. Whether it's, and hey, we also, I don't want to give away trade secrets, but we were getting this guy involved in the run game. A number of receivers we were doing the same thing. There was Dylan Bell, a couple of Arian Smith at times, but there were a couple of drills where we were actually getting those guys involved in the run game, getting him on the edge there, like on jet sweeps, fly sweeps, that kind of stuff. That is a way this guy can also make plays for us. So really, really excited about him, and he's very clearly going to play a lot for Georgia this year. Another one of my biggest questions coming today, maybe my biggest question. I know it was my biggest concern of this team coming into the year. I did my 5 biggest questions for Georgia a couple weeks ago. Check out that video. And at number 1 was, to no surprise, anyone who's been listening to this podcast all offseason, was will our defensive line take a step forward? Will it get closer to being what it was in 21 and 22 and take a step forward from that? I don't want to say trainer. We were so good against the run last year, just not Georgia level good. We went from averaging about 80 yards a game allowed on the ground to 113 last year. Just wasn't remotely close to what we expected. It wasn't to the Georgia standard. And if we want to get back to winning national championships, we got to get back closer to that type of dominant run defense. That was my biggest question. So naturally, I came today laser focus on the defensive line. Now, that was complicated by the fact that Warren Brinson and Jordan Hall were not out there going through drills. Warren Brinson's just doing a little bit of an Achilles strain. He'll be back. He'll be fine. Jordan Hall had a stress fracture. He's having to recover from that. Hopefully, he'll be ready for week 1 against Clemson. I don't know if I'm counting on that right now. However, even without those guys, I was very impressed by what I saw. Nas Stackhouse in 2022 was certainly not Jordan Davis, because how could he possibly be Jordan Davis, right? But he was really good for us. There wasn't a massive drop-off in 2022 at the zero tech nose. Last year, he did not play up to his standard. He was a different player. Now, as the season progressed, he got better. But Nas had a down year last year. And there's a reason why he came back. But you can tell he was on a mission this year. He's on a mission right now. That guy was dominant for us on the interior today. Now, we removed some guys around on the interior of the number one offensive line. Certainly maybe that factored into it. Guys playing positions that they're not quite as comfortable playing, not as accustomed to playing. Maybe that factored into it. But Nas Stackhouse was hard to move, man. He makes a couple plays in the backfield. He was disengaging from blocks. He was eating up space, doing what we need him to do. He looked a lot more like, actually, that was the best I've ever seen him probably. I mean, even going back to 2022 when he was a good player, this is one practice, but in that one practice, I thought Nas Stackhouse was awesome for us. Christian Miller, I am extremely high on this year. I think he is our most dynamic 3-tech right now. I think Jordan Hall and Christian Miller are the two guys we have at 3-tech right now. I would throw Xavier McLeod in there too, the transfer from South Carolina. I think those three guys have higher ceilings than Warren Brinson. No shot at Warren Brinson. I think he's a really, really good player for us. But is he like a true dynamic difference maker for us? Probably not, right? I think that, I don't know if you can say that Jordan Hall or Christian Miller or Xavier McLeod could ever reach the level of a guy like Jalen Carter. Probably not. That's very high. Those are almost unreasonable expectations. I think their potential is closer to that than Warren Brinson. So I was very eager to get eyes on Christian Miller. And he played a lot of snaps today because of all the injuries at that 3-tech spot. And he looked really, really good, man. He looked explosive off the ball, which he always does. And that's his natural spot. He had to play way too much 0-tech last year because we had no one behind Nazir Stackhouse. It's not the case this year, right? We have Jamal Jarrett. Xavier McLeod can play some there. Nnamdi Agboko can play some there. So we have some guys that can play that 0-tech for us in a way that will allow us to put Christian Miller at that 3-tech, which is a much more natural position for him. He's 305 pounds, guys. He's the exact same size as Warren Brinson, essentially. So that's his spot. And he played a lot today at that 3-tech and looked really, really strong, explosive, powerful, played with really good leverage, which was always something he does well, did that really well last year. He looked great. So I'm excited about him. I thought Xavier McLeod, the transfer from South Carolina, who's kind of an X factor for us this year, because I don't know what to expect. Come over from South Carolina, played with Carolina for like half of last year, and then was dismissed from the team or left the team or mutual parting of ways, however you want to interpret that. Depends on who you believe and who you listen to there. But he was only with South Carolina for like half the year. We do know that. That is a fact. So he missed half a year of reps and development as a true freshman. So where is he now? Like coming into Georgia, like what can we expect from him? I didn't know. What I did know is that at G-Day, small sample size, but it's the only sample size I had to work with, he made plays, man. Like he was making plays. Now, it was the number 2 defense he was going against. So it's like, okay, well, our number 2 offensive line. So how does that translate? But our number 2 offensive line is not bad, guys. It's better than most offensive lines out there. So he made some plays there, whether it was in the run game, whether it was rushing the passer, made some plays. So I was curious to see what he'd be able to do today. And I thought he played well, man. He was rotating a lot in there with Christian Miller, a little bit at the 0-tech as well at times. I thought he looked really good, man. He's a big, strong, powerful guy. He's like 325, explosive as well, strong hands, man. He's got a heavy punch there. So that's a guy, I know that we're down some players right now, and those guys will be back eventually. But with Jordan Hall, probably not going to practice much, if any at all, through fall camp, recovering that stress fracture. I don't know what his stats will be going into week 1 against Clemson. There is a strong possibility right now that Xavier McLeod will have to play some serious reps for us against Clemson. And after today, I'm okay with that. Like, that doesn't concern me. I think that guy can play. I think he's going to be a big-time player for us. All right, let's go. Here's another one, man. Oh, okay. Now, this is not great. So far, I've been, like, raving about guys, right? Well, it's not always the case to everybody. Let me just say, Carson Beck's incredible. But Carson Beck better not get hurt this year, man. He better not get hurt. I don't think we have another quarterback on the roster right now that is ready at this point to lead us to a national championship. And I know we are loaded everywhere else, man. I understand that. He better not get hurt, all right? Look, Gunnar Stockton, this is one practice. Quarterbacks can have good days, can have bad days. Maybe I just caught Gunnar Stockton on a bad day. Maybe, okay? I'll give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not here to rip him, man. I love Gunnar Stockton. I'm rooting for the guy. He's a Georgia kid, man. I want good things to happen for him. Sticking it out like this, going the Carson Beck route, not transferring at the sign of first adversity. I want this kid to be successful. I want it to work out for him. I am desperately rooting for this young man. However, today, he didn't have it, man. It was not a good day for Gunnar Stockton. It was really a variety of things. Accuracy, man, bad. Like, not even close sometimes. Like just very, very, very bad accuracy. Decision making, highly questionable. There's one play in particular late in the it wasn't a scrimmage, but late in practice, we were doing some team stuff, and he threw a ball. He was under a little bit of pressure, not much. Man, that's not somebody was like bearing down on him. No, he wasn't going to get hit anyway. He threw the ball right at Troy Bowles. So Troy Bowles is like in a white jersey, different color jersey than the team so the defense is in white, offense is in red. And he's trying to throw a crossing route, and Troy Bowles is sitting like dead in front of him, like directly in his line of sight. It's almost like impossible. How do you not see him? And he threw it right in Troy Bowles' numbers. Troy Bowles is a linebacker, and it bounced right off his chest plate and to the ground. So it wasn't an interception, but in real life football, that's probably going to be an interception. And that wasn't the only one. That was the most egregious one. There were multiple situations where he put the ball into serious harm's way, where the ball had zero chance to be complete. There's another play where he was trying to throw a seam route, and I forget who it was in the seam route, but whoever it was essentially triple covered, and he tried to fit it in there inexplicably. I don't know why, but fortunately, it was actually a good thing that he wasn't accurate, because he threw the ball about 3 yards in front of the receiver. Because if he'd thrown the ball on the receiver, it would have absolutely 100% been intercepted. It's one of those things like, what are you doing, man? Like, I don't understand what you're seeing there. So, look, he did some good things too. He made some good throws. It wasn't all bad. Gunner's a talented guy. He's obviously very athletic. They rely on his legs at times, like we saw against Florida State in the Orange Bowl. And he's still young. He's still growing. He hasn't had as many reps, right? He was the number 3 quarterback last year. Now he's probably the number 2 guy. So he's getting more reps for the first time going back this spring. So all I'm here to say is he's still a work in progress. He's not ready right now. Think about where Carson Beck was in his third year in the system. So back in 2022, right? When he was getting some of those garbage time reps, but like was really good in garbage time when he got opportunities, and Kirby actually let him run the offense. And that led me to believe that he was going to be really good for us as our starter last year. He's not where Carson was as a third-year guy. He's not. Carson was light years ahead of him. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be ready by next year. It doesn't mean that. But right now, I have serious questions about what we have behind Carson Beck for this year. Jaden Rashada made some good throws, but didn't get that many reps because he's still new to the team. And he's going through his first week of practice as well with the team. He's a talented guy. You can see the arm talent there. He's pretty thin. I'd like to see him add a little bit of weight, but I mean, he's going to be in the thick of that competition next year. And Ryan Puglisi actually did some really good things. I mean, he missed all the fall camp dealing with a stretch fracture of his own, or all spring practice dealing with a stretch fracture of his own. He was out there today. He's an athletic kid, got a really live arm, made some accurate throws. There's some questionable decisions he made at times, but you expect from a true freshman. But he looked the part, but he's not ready right now to go in there and lead a team to a national championship. I know Jaden Rashada started a couple games for Arizona State last year before he got hurt. I mean, I didn't see as much of him today because he's working with the number 3 offense. I don't know if he's ready, especially to run this offense that he's still trying to figure out. So Gunner's almost certainly going to be the number 2 guy. He's been in the system for 3 years. And I hope I'm wrong. God forbid. Again, knock on wood. Hopefully nothing happens to Carson. I hate even putting this out there in the universe. But I just came away from that practice today, and one of the first things I was thinking as I was walking back to my car was like, man, Carson better not get hurt, because I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know if we have a guy that this year's ready. I'm not saying next year they can't be ready. They got another year to get ready. But right now, I got questions, man. I got questions there. Let's go to something a little more positive. All right, Janelle Aguero, he's a guy, if you were with us last year, coming into the season, he was a true freshman. I always say true freshman, like you don't want to expect anything from them. But I thought he had a shot because he's so physically gifted, man. And he's the physical specimen. Like, he is the physical prototype of what Kirby Smart wants in a star defender, and that hybrid linebacker, cornerback kind of guy. He can cover, can also fit against the run, and be really physical. He's that guy. So I thought he had a shot with a good fall camp to maybe push Tyke Smith and maybe earn some reps early in the year. And if he played well, then maybe he could overtake that job at some point in the year. I was wrong on that, because Tyke Smith made me look like a freaking idiot because he played out of his mind last year. Tyke Smith, I've been going back all offseason, all through the summer, rewatching all these games for like the 6th, 7th time, and getting ready for our Scout and the Enemy episodes that we do, and just doing our usual due diligence on our film study for the offseason. And Tyke Smith, I mean, I just forgot how good he was, man. Like, I knew he was good last year, like in the moment, but going back and rewatching it and just like zeroing in on him, I didn't realize how good he was. He was awesome for us last year. So I thought that Jonell would have a chance, but Tyke Smith said, not so fast, my friend. But Tyke Smith's gone. Jonell Aguero now, as a rising sophomore, he is the guy at star. Zero questions asked. I mean, he was almost exclusively getting reps with the number one defense at that star position, and he is the dude, man. Like again, physical, size, strength to defend against the run. He will light you up, the strong physical guy, but athletic and can cover in space as well. So I'm very, very high on him, and he is exactly who I thought he was going to be. It's just going to be a year after I thought he might be that guy. TID. So I mentioned when we were our base 3-4 defense against 12 personnel, he was working a lot with the number one defense at that 5-tech defensive end. And he looked good, man. I thought he made some strong plays out there. He was really strong at the point of attack. He's really athletic at the 5-tech. And he's really important too, because if he can really step up and play a bigger role for us at the 5-tech, that will free us up to move Michael Williams around. It will free us up to be more comfortable to play Michael at the jack linebacker position, just do different things and get matchups that will allow him to really, really make it difficult on offense. And I thought TID showed that he's taken that step. Now, he was, according to Kirby, he was a little bit banged up the first couple practices of fall camp, but he was out there full go today, as far as I saw. And I thought he looked really strong. He was strong at the point of attack, athletic, was getting the backfield at times, was able to defend the perimeter run game well. I think he's in line for a big year for us. And this is a guy that was depending on what recruiting service you look at, I think it was 247, had him as a 5-star guy, a top 20 guy when he came out of high school a couple years back. He's that guy. He's that talented. He just hasn't been fully healthy. He's been dealing with a foot injury. He's back from that foot injury, and I think he's going to be a big-time player for us this year. All right, return game. So I went over who I saw in the kick return game, punt return game, and at least the guys who are rotating there. I don't know who's going to win those jobs. That remains to be seen. I mean, I can't really tell you based on what I saw today because they were just, they were going against air. But the players that we have to choose from, the options that we had to choose from back there now, when you throw in a guy like KJ Bold and now Anthony Evans and Sokovie White and Trevor Etienne, we are going to be much more dynamic in the return game, both kick return and punt return, than we have been since maybe Isaiah McKenzie. And look, I know that we were solid last year, right? But I think we're going to take it to a different level this year. I truly believe that. I think we have some game breakers for us, whether it's kick return, punt return, and I don't know who's going to win those jobs. I think if I had to project right now, I probably lean Anthony Evans. If he can hold on, no, I'm not saying he had problems holding the ball today, but Kirby puts an emphasis on that. You got to actually be able to catch the ball, field it. But if he can do that, I think he's probably the most dynamic threat back there in the punt return game. Kick return, I don't know. That's interesting. Dylan Bell is a guy that's got some size to him, but also has athleticism. Because, kick return it's tougher to put the small guys out there because the players are coming in. There's more speed coming at you, right? They got longer to run, so the collisions are like higher velocity. So you usually don't want your smaller guys out there. So maybe you see Dylan Bell. But I thought KJ Bolden looked really good too, man. And KJ Bolden's a dynamic punt and kick returner in high school. So we'll see what happens there. But whoever wins those jobs, we have so many quality options, like dynamic, game-changing options as returners, that I think we will be as strong in the return game as we have been since the days of Isaiah McKenzie back in, 2016? Been a long time. And I guess finally here, I did mention earlier, but just bears repeating again, Jazar Jackson, the former semi-pro basketball player, is not ready to contribute for us right now. He's got a long way to develop. However, he is everything I thought he would be in terms of like his athletic ability. I called him a generational talent when we did our show a couple weeks ago. But now I'm ready to say he's going to be a big-time player for us. Generational player, I can't say that yet, but I believe, not this year, maybe not even next year, maybe next year though, sometime in the next year or two, Jazar Jackson is going to develop into a big-time player for Georgia. I think a future first-round draft pick. That's the kind of skill set this guy has. He's got to figure out what to do, man. Again, like there's one play where the rest of the line is they're in their stance, ready to go, and he's just like turning around, looking around, like he has no clue what's happening, and that's fine. I mean, that's to be expected for a guy in his fourth practice in the last like 5 or so years, but he is going to be a very good player for us. I mean, the size, strength, athleticism. I mean, he is going to be the real deal, no doubt about it. All right, guys, last thing here, I do kind of want to put a little bow on this, wrap it up, summarize it. And people always like to, there's a popular question when you see these things like that, like who stood out to you? Well, I'll give you my top 5 standouts. How about that, all right? This was a hard list to put together because, again, I mean, I'm going from drill to drill, and you don't see every single rep. And I don't know how you define, I don't even know how I'm defining standouts. These are the players, to me, that impressed me the most when I watched them out there on the field today. And it doesn't necessarily mean they like made the most plays. Like some of these guys made a lot of plays for us, but it also just means like they looked really good. They caught my eye, right? Does that make sense? They caught my eye, whether it's how fast they were, how explosive they were, how physical they were. Maybe it was the plays they were making, but these are the top 5 guys that stood out to me that caught my eye. Coming in at number 5. Now, someone else might tell you a different player, a different running back. To me, it was Nate Frazier. Okay, now maybe it's because I know what Trevor Etienne is. I know what to expect from him, and like, it didn't wow me because I'm always wowed by him. I think he's a fantastic running back. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe I just know Branson's a dynamic running back when he's healthy. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But Nate Frazier, again, like I said earlier, he just looked different, man. He's got that extra gear that I just don't think anyone else in that running back room has. And it's not just that he's like a speed guy. Yes, he is explosive, but he runs 100 miles an hour and will put his shoulder down and truck you. There are multiple players that he just straight up trucked today. Like we were doing like a, back in my day, we called it inside drill. They called it team run. That's what we call it. And doing some team run stuff, and not full pads, but despite only being in shells, he was running through people, running over defenders. And it's tough for defenders, like, because Kirby's sitting there the whole time saying, like, stay up, stay up, stay up. Like, don't take him to the ground, don't take him to the ground. And then Nate Frazier, they're just, like, running through people. So it's tough for a defender. But, man, I love the way this guy runs. He runs angry. He's explosive. He's got good hands on the backfield. This guy is going to be a major part of our offense moving forward. Maybe not as much this year because we do have some upperclassmen, but next year, I mean, this guy, watch out. Watch out for Nate Frazier. Carson Beck, got to throw him in there at number 4. Carson wasn't, I wouldn't say he was spectacular today. He also didn't have as many opportunities because we were doing some situational stuff. Like we didn't do like up and down the field, like a full-on scrimmage. So it's kind of more controlled there. So you're kind of limited in the plays that you can make and like the wow plays you make, I guess. But I will say this. The one big criticism that people have for Carson Beck last year, at least that's what I heard people say, what people were sending me, was that he struggled hitting the deep ball. And I do think there is some truth to that. I mean, we saw from time to time, there's a play against Ole Miss. Lad McConkey was the big explosive play. Lad had hit the double move, and he had like 5 steps from the defender, and it should have been a walk-in touchdown. Carson underthrew him a little bit, and so the defense called up to him, and it was like still a huge play, but it should have been a touchdown. Same thing with Arian Smith in the SEC Championship game. He hit him, kind of underthrew him, should have been a walk-in touchdown. Instead, he down to the 10-yard line, and on that drive, we scored, but we had to settle for a field goal. Much rather have a touchdown. He scored a touchdown there, probably won the football game, right? It is what it is. So there is some truth to that. I think there was too much made of it. I think he was far better than the deep ball. People want to give him credit. But I will say this for Carson Beck. One practice. It's just one practice, guys. I thought he looked really good throwing the deep ball. Hit a couple of good balls. Now, he always threw the wheel route, the rail route really well. And that was on full display today. But there were a couple of shots down the field and he didn't get a ton of shots on that because it wasn't a full scrimmage. But when he had opportunities, there's one to Oscar Delp down the field that he hit in stride. There's another one, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Anthony Evans. But he hit that guy in stride as well. So he was hitting a higher percentage of those deep throws down the field than we saw last year. And again, if there was any criticism of Carson Beck last year, I think that was probably number 1 on most people's list. So I thought he did much better there. He was obviously in control, making good decisions with the football, highly accurate with the ball. This guy is the real deal. All right, I mean, there's a reason why people talk about him as the top returning quarterback in college football, potential number 1 overall draft pick, and one of the 2. I think now he was the betting favorite. I think now he's the number 2 betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy now. But there's a reason why he's getting all those accolades coming into this season because the dude is the real deal. So got to talk about Carson Beck there. Number 3, I talked about a little bit earlier, Anthony Evans was making plays, man. And even the plays that he wasn't making, like he had a drop or 2, but some of those were like in contested catch situations and like small windows, tight windows. But the guy is just so fast, so explosive. And he can actually make some of those contested catches. Not a big guy at all, but he can actually go up and win those 50-50 balls at times. And just getting him the ball in space, I think is going to be a big part of what we try to do with him because he is electric in space. He will make you miss. He's elusive. And also he has that elite home run speed. So I was thoroughly impressed by Anthony Evans. And he might have played more with the number 1 offense than any of the receivers, to be honest with you. Like he might have gotten more reps with that offense than anybody else. And I think that's probably a sign of us trying to accelerate his development. And Kirby Smart, we did an episode at the end of last week kind of recapping what Kirby said, like the first day of fall camp. And he spoke about Anthony Evans directly. I think he was asked about him. He spoke at length about Anthony Evans. He talked about like, this guy can make plays for us. We have high expectations for him. Clearly, based off what we saw out there, he's on the field a lot, but he's got to toughen up. And that was Kirby Smart sending a message to the young man. And there were a couple times out there where he was, making comments over the microphone to Anthony Evans, like, hey, you got to be a little more physical. You got to fight a little harder, those kind of things. But in terms of playing, I think this guy, we had him out there so much because we're trying to get him ready to play. We're trying to enhance the amount of reps he has to really, really accelerate that development because we know what type of playmaker that we have in Anthony Evans. And I think we saw that on full display today. Number 2, defensively, Jaylen Everett looked really good, man. And I know he wasn't always that guy last year. Early in the year, he had some issues, with ball skills, finding the ball, like we saw with Keely Ringo maybe in 2022. But we also have to remember that Jaylen Everett was a first-year starter last year, all right? I always try to compare it to Kamari Lassiter. Kamari Lassiter, in his first year as a starter in 2022, wasn't the same version of Kamari Lassiter we saw last year. Now, towards the end of 2022, he was much more of that guy. But early in 2022, he was still learning. He was still growing, still developing. By the end of that year, I thought he was our best cover guy. I think Jaylen Everett is following a very similar path because Kamari Lassiter, in his second year as a starter last year, was lights out. I mean, he was his play last year was first round level play. It was as measurable as at the combine that got him and left him out of the first round, which a mistake because right now he, I think, is starting for the Texans now. He's starting. I believe that's the case. But he's going to be a big-time player in the NFL. And I think Jaylen Everett's following a similar path. Struggled some early in his first year as a starter last year. Got better and better. His ball skills improved dramatically throughout the year. And now in year 2 as a starter, this guy is poised to become one of the best cover guys, not just in the SEC, maybe the country. Let's not forget this guy. By the way, he was committed to Clemson initially. We flipped him from Clemson late in that cycle, so it's kind of an interesting game for him. But this is a guy that was a 5-star dude coming out of high school. And he's got the goods, man. He's got the physical tools. He's got the size to be able to defend the perimeter run game, the perimeter screen game. But I also think he's got really, really good cover skills. He's a great athlete. He's got good size, good length. His ball skills were more the issue for him early last year, but that really started to improve as the season went on. And I fully expect him to be a one of the best cornerbacks in the country this year. I believe that for Jaylen Everett. I thought he looked fantastic out there. So Colby Young's a guy, got some reps with him once. Colby Young is a really talented player, and the guy's a 50-50 machine, but Jaylen Everett won his fair share of those reps, man, and he was winning. Whoever he was guarding against, I mean, they didn't get many receptions against him. I mean, he was breaking up some passes and looked really, really good out there. Looked like he knew what to do. Ball skills looked great, so love what I saw from him. And then number 1, talked about him earlier, no surprise here, Jaylen Walker. Like, he was the biggest takeaway for me. That guy just looked like he's going to destroy opposing offenses this year, whether it's an inside linebacker, whether it's a jack linebacker, whether it's third downs, moving him around, doing different things with him. This guy is the most disruptive player that we have in our defense. I love Michael Williams. It's like 1A, 1B, but Jaylen Walker is a different dude. He's so explosive rushing the passer. I think he's probably our most athletic inside linebacker based off what I saw. I mean, Raylan Wilson's right there too. But I don't know if we have a more athletic inside linebacker than Jaylen Walker right now. Like maybe Chris Cole, Justin Williams can be that guy down the road. But right now, with like size, athleticism combination, I think it's Jaylen Walker. So he's going to play a lot, whether it's inside linebacker, outside linebacker, whether it's third down pass rushing specialist. He's going to play a lot. He's got to be on the field more. And based on what I saw today, I think that's a certainty at this point. So those are my top 5. Jaylen Walker, Jaylen Everett, Anthony Evans, Carson Beck, Nate Frazier. But I got those some honorable mentions out there. Putting together top 5 lists, it's very tough. I mentioned TID, Tyron Ingram Dawkins, looked really, really good, man. First time he's been really fully healthy in 2 years maybe? And he showed me that he can be a big-time part of our defense this year at that 5-tech spot. And it was great to kind of start living up to those fringe 5-star rankings that he had coming out of high school. Janelle Aguero was the real deal at star today. I think he's going to be a big-time player for us there. Ernest Green, he was a guy that was a first-year starter last year at left tackle, struggled early last year, got better as the season progressed, which is what you want to see. You want to see that natural progression. And I thought he had a really strong practice today. I thought he was really good in pass pro. I thought he was really physical in the run game, driving people off the ball, driving people in the ground, multiple pancakes, even though we weren't in full pads. So I liked what I saw from Ernest Green. Nas Stackhouse, it was hard to keep him off this list. I thought he was much better than what we saw from him last year in this one setting, but he looked really, really strong. That's also building off what we saw at G-Day. I thought he had a really strong G-Day as well. So I think Nas Stackhouse is poised for a big bounce-back year as a third-year starter for us in this Georgia defense. And then Branson Robinson / Trevor Etienne. either one of those guys could have made my top 5 list. It was hard to keep them out. I went with Nate Frazier because he popped to me more than those guys did. But Branson Robinson did a lot of the same things. I mean, he looked explosive. He looked powerful, which is, I mean, he's like a bowling ball out there. Trevor Etienne was just Trevor Etienne, man. If you watch him before, that's what he was out there. He was a guy that was made multiple plays in the run game, was able to run through some arm tackles, even though, again, we weren't tackling at the ground, but ran with some physicality, was elusive in space, made a couple guys miss, has got that extra gear that he can kick it into as well. So both those guys look really strong. Again, our running back room, I called it the weakest position on the roster coming to the end of the year. I don't think I can say that with a straight face now. I still don't know who I would put behind them, but we can't call that the weakest room. With Branson Robinson back, playing at this level, this caliber right now, and what I saw from Nate Frazier, and obviously Roger Robinson. Roger Robinson also had a good day as well. I mean, if you want to throw him in there, depending on what reps you saw, maybe he could make his way in there. But our running back room looked really, really, really strong today. But that's all I got for you guys. I mean, that's all that I had in my mind when I came back home. Again, I couldn't take notes there because they said no phones when we were out in the stands, and I try to abide by the rules, man. I'm a rule follower. That's who I am. So I came home and got set down and to try to jot down and type out as many things that were in my head as I possibly could remember. So I'm sure I missed something. So if you have some question, guys, if you're curious about a specific player or position that maybe I didn't touch on today, let me know. You can hit us up on Twitter's @glory_UGA. You can just leave a question in the comment, and I will try to see as many of those as I possibly can and try to respond to them there. But also check out the Glory UGA podcast, and if things come back to my mind over the course of this next week that maybe I just like zoned out on and didn't mention here, I will include those on the podcast side of things. But thank you guys for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed this type of hardcore Georgia football talk that's designed for you guys, I mean, the most diehard fans out there, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now. You don't want to miss any of the content. We're going to have a lot of film session content for you guys leading up to the season, certainly throughout the season as well. So check that out. Subscribe, like, comment, all the above. I greatly appreciate that, guys. Thank you for checking the video out. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.